Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to House of Hughes, the exploration of the career of John Hughes as a director here on the Houselights podcast. I am John Mills, and I am delighted to welcome my fellow freshmen here at the high school podcast, Darren Moser, future Dr. Sci-Fi. You're a pre-doctorate right now.
My parents always had great dreams for me. I had no choice.
Yes.
I'm heading towards the doctorate in science fiction.
You knew you were headed that way. And of course, future biographer and filmmaker to the stars with his own forthcoming high school series, Tristan Riddell. How are you, sir?
I'm doing just fine. And we were actually just talking about before we hit record being a child of the 80s. And Darren and I were children in the 80s, but you were a child of the 80s. And I think that's an important distinction.
But I was a children in the 80s too. I was just a slightly older children. So, I was old enough to comprehend film in the 80s. So that's sort of like a key difference right there.
A small but important difference.
It's a distinction. I knew how to work a VCR in the 1980s. So, there's a key difference.
But so speaking of the 80s, we're only doing John Hughes films of the 80s, and you may be asking yourself, why not go all the way? Because he only had one more movie after that in the 90s. And I threatened to quit the show if we reviewed Curly Sue.
And it took weeks for Darren and myself to reject that offer after serious deliberations. But we're going to keep Tristan on. And the thing is, now I feel I have to see Curly Sue because I never have.
You can watch it on your own time.
I will watch it on my own time. It would be a treat, in fact, to watch a movie that wasn't an assignment for something at some point in my life. But speaking of assignments, you good listeners have an assignment to go to thenerdparty.com/contact and interact with the show and look for the network at Join Nerd Party on Twitter and the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. So that's your assignment here for Houselights. Now, John Hughes is absolutely a name of great importance as a filmmaker of the 1980s. He found a niche and he stuck with it. He was a comedy writer. He had escaped the advertising world, and actually, in his life, working as an ad agency guy was how he connected with National Lampoon on his trips to New York City, and that's what helped launch his writing and comedy career, because one of his stories about an ill-fated family trip, a vacation to Disney World that was fictionalized, became National Lampoon's Vacation, which was a tremendous hit and sets Hughes down the road of getting into the world of film. And here we are this week with his first film, 16 Candles. Which launches the career of a number of actors and actresses that became household names. So regardless of what we all think of the movie as we find out about it, we'll have to agree that it launched a ton of careers. And Hughes became known for that, for great casting, which is something that one of the directors in his orbit, Chris Columbus, is also known for his tremendous casting. And so basically my first question to start this off, because here I am rambling about Hughes. He's a very easy figure to eulogize and lionize for people of a certain age. Darren, question to you, were John Hughes movies like a de rigueur piece of your movie making education? Did you have older cousins or siblings or your parents saying, you got to watch this movie, this is a John Hughes movie, they're all great? Or was this something where you caught one every so often because your friends would mention one?
Let me look up what don de jour means. Let's see. No, we weren't. Again, being a child in the 80s, Yeah, I mean, Hughes. We knew the name, and I almost want to say up front, trust us here on the Nerd Party Network. We've done our research. You're going to get 7 movies in this 1980s John Hughes look back because we're no Great Outdoors. There's going to be no Pretty in Pink, no European Vacation. He didn't direct those. So even though you think maybe he directed and wrote everything, no, he was slightly selective in what we got.
However, that is an important thing to point out, is that even though he quote unquote only directed that many movies, he wrote so many more. It's like, I don't know when he slept, honestly, because he was producing, writing, and directing at an absolutely feverish pace. It's probably why he died of a heart attack at the age of 59. But still, he was amazingly prolific and frankly burned himself out. That's why he faded from the scene and went back to spend time with his family, is because he decided he'd had enough of it.
Yeah.
And you have to admire somebody that realizes they've hit that point where they're working too much and they're able. Not everybody's able to, but if you're able to.
It's interesting. It makes me think of like James Cameron, who I would also think of as a director who really gunned and pushed themselves, but they also produced like one movie every 3 or 4 years, at a much more, they were bigger films, but it was a much more sustainable pace,
right?
And but that's definitely part of Hughes' story, where you have these weekend writing sessions where he's banging out these scripts in days, and it just worked for him. I mean, I'm not that much of a writer. I couldn't turn out this kind, and I'm sure, drafting aside, but yeah. So no, to answer your original question, John, Hughes's name wasn't something growing up of like, oh, you got to see this, but I still knew who it was. Like it's one of those first directors or writers, probably more writers, where, it starts to trickle into, modern talking, where it's like, oh, well, this is a Spielberg film and this is a Hughes film. Like, even if you didn't watch those, you kind of knew this was a person that had a style and a body of work. And, we should look at all of Hughes films from a specific decade. Like, that sounds like a thing that would be interesting to do.
Yeah, it does sound like something interesting to do. And the thing is, I imagine Tristan, as a lifelong resident of Chicago, Illinois, you went
to the school, right? Kids went to this specific school.
It was mandatory.
Chicago.
They just cloned the Breakfast Club school and sent everybody there. But I actually, were there mandatory classes in John Hughes being from Illinois, or was it an elective?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that like, I'm from Illinois. Like, I was born and raised in central Illinois, and there's a big difference between central Illinois and northern Illinois. And so I was not raised in Chicago. I was not even raised around Chicago. I was 2.5 hours south, more like 2 hours south of Chicago. But so like John Hughes isn't really like an Illinoisan figure. John Hughes is a Chicago figure, just kind of like John Cusack and Joan
really?
Cusack are. Yeah, absolutely.
No, see, the thing is, and now just to explain the long-standing joke, Chicago Noi is because I make the joke with you, Tristan, all the time. That,
yes.
Like to an East Coaster, Chicago extends from the bottom of Michigan to somewhere around the Mississippi. I don't know.
Yeah, and people who live in Chicago think that anything north of Division Street is Wisconsin.
There you go. But it's that's an interesting distinction to me, though, because it's that hyper localized, that it's, because I would think it would be sort of like, the pride of Illinois sort of thing, because he's a native. So really? Okay.
No, Illinois does not. Most of Illinois does not take pride in Chicago. Like there's there's
city
like
over there.
Fair.
Yeah, like no,
lake.
like there's a song, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like outside of Chicago there's this little place called Illinois. And yeah, is it like there's a lot of history and animosity between non-Chicago and Chicago because of corruption, tax dollars, like just like tons and tons of stuff.
Now, the thing is, I think the people of Illinois are being tough on themselves, right? The city on the hill that Chicago is, you can aspire.
Oh no,
You can aspire.
I love Chicago. I lived there for a bit. Now I live just 20 minutes north of Chicago. And
so in Wisconsin, is that what you're saying?
yeah. If you ask the Chicagoan, I'm living in Wisconsin. But actually, I live on
if you say John Hughes Boulevard, I swear.
Well, no, I mean, like, I was actually going to save this for the Breakfast Club, but since we're talking about it now, he was born in Lansing, Michigan, but when he was 6, I think he moved to Northbrook, Illinois, which is the neighboring town to where I live right now. And he went to Glenbrook North High School, which is the sister school of my wife's high school, Glenbrook South High School. And I live on Shermer Road, and the high school that he went to is on Shermer Road. It's just down the street from me. And in 3 of his films, the high school and Breakfast Club, and one of them, the high school is called Shermer High School because the high school he went to was on Shermer Road.
Wow.
And in Breakfast Club, some of the exteriors and interiors were filmed at his old high school. And the library set, like, one exterior was like a Maine North High School, which is just down, like, just a few towns over from me. And the interior that they built the library, and that library set is based off of that high school. So yeah, it's a lot of local.
So if they had a star
history
tram tour like they have out here in LA, they'd be cruising down that street pointing out, and this here is the school is based off of John Hughes. Is the interior was different, but I don't know why I have a microphone. It sounds really bad, but
yeah, it's right behind my Costco.
Well, boy, isn't that a sign of progress in our lives? But speaking of high school, Hughes, of course, is known for his high school movies, even though, as we're going to find out here through the 80s, like he didn't stay in high school forever. He did, in fact, move beyond it by, what was it, 1987. And but here we have 16 Candles, the story of a girl turning 16. So, of course, it's set in high school. Of course, it's focused on her life. And one of the things that was regarded was that Hughes captured the essence of teenage life in high school. And one of the things I find so interesting about going back and looking at his movies is I'm not sure how much I agree with that anymore. And so, Tristan, I'll toss it to you first. Do you feel that he captures the vibe of high school adequately, or is this something where he was capturing the vibe of something that even predates the 80s, like his high school time?
I do like that question, because I was really thinking about that after I watched it, because the thing that really threw me was there was multiple theme songs from old TV shows that were not diegetic. Like, they just popped up like they were part of the score. And when Anthony Michael Hall first appears, we hear the Dragnet theme for no reason. For absolutely no reason. And, like, as I'm watching this, I'm just like, Dragnet? Man, that was a dated reference even in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then I think we hear the Twilight Zone. And then we hear the Twilight Zone theme. And I think maybe the Outer Limits theme. And something else, but I was just like, what is going on here? And so I felt like it was a mishmash of maybe, like some current culture from what the actors brought, but a lot of what Hughes went to with his high school, like when he went to high school. So I feel some of it felt really dated, and I'm not saying dated as in today. Obviously, it's 80s and we're in the 2020s. But I'm saying, like, dated even when you go and look back to the 80s, it feels off, and it didn't feel very universal. Like, my wife was kind of like, I don't have too many memories of just staring at a completely naked high school girl who I was in the locker room with while she was showering, admiring her, saying, ugh, ugh, how horrible, ugh.
Yeah,
I don't think that captured everybody's experience. Not saying people didn't have that experience. I'm sure many people did.
well,
But it's not a universal.
yeah, I two things. One is what I think you hit on accurately there is the 80s saw the 70s and the 80s saw this sort of nostalgic look back at the 50s and 60s because people who had come up during those ages were rooted in those times, and so they were making reference back to them for, I guess, the older audience or whatever. In terms of the locker room scene that you're talking about, what I can tell you is that and boy, this is something where might make people's think less of me or something. I never stuck around in the locker room. I changed so lightning fast.
Oh
and
God,
I did,
yes.
and I did not shower. I was like, I don't want to take a shower with a bunch of people I don't know. Like I was big into personal space even back then, and I was like, I'm good. I'm like, I don't care if I smell a little bit. I just didn't put in a lot of effort during gym class. Basically, that was the way I went through with it. I was like, I never understood people who were sweaty enough at the end of gym class. Like it was like, unless you like went out and ran the mile, I was like, why did you break a sweat? We got to go to class in 50 minutes. What is wrong with you?
But like,
Anyway.
But speaking of that moment, that could be some of the most unnecessary nudity I've ever seen in film. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. I'm trying to think of another time when I'm just like, it was so unmotivated and so out of nowhere. It was just like school, boom, boobs. Center frame.
What it made me think of actually this time is the opening of Carrie, which starts off in a girl's shower, and it's a little bit Brian De Palma. If you've seen De Palma movies, you know what I'm saying. But it's sort of harkened back to that. But I agree with you that shot, that moment in specific, really feels, and Darren, we were talking about this beforehand. It feels a little bit like it was included because it was expected in teen movies and popular movies,
horror movies, different kinds of things in that time. Yeah, because I totally agree with you, Tristan. It's like there's obviously a reason they put it in, and that reason was not plot. That reason was like, okay, well, we get one shot like that, so we're gonna dump it all into this one scene. And it's like the 80s. I mean, there's I'm thinking of RoboCop. There's frontal nudity in that, or Die Hard. There's a moment in that movie as well. So, but again, they're like fleeting glances. It stood out because it was so in your face, and we're like, what? Why? Okay, here we go. I mean, I just want to say we've been trying to show older movies to my kids, and we started doing adventure in babysitting, and we got a little bit into that, and then we're like, you know what? I don't think we're remembering this as well as we need to. Let's pause that. We went to Hook, and that was a much more stable movie.
Substantially less nudity in Hook. That is true.
A whole lot.
Yes.
I mean, no one wants to see Bob Hoskins like that. No, but
oh, hey, speak for yourself, Darren. But
no, this was a time before PG-13. Like this was when PG
it was just
actually
PG,
meant
Kristen.
what it was.
It's PG. No, but
I know, but that like I always find that kind of stuff fascinating because
like
the
PG
meant like PG meant like
you need some
guidance. Yeah, like there you go. It was a blanket term. It wasn't built for specificity.
Just like R. R was like, I mean, I personally have R, and then Pulverhoven R is like its own breed of R. But hard R.
Hardy RR. Well, just continuing with this thread, though, something that struck me about watching it this time, and Darren, I want to get your opinion on this,
because this is my first time watching this film.
I totally forgot to ask that. This is literally the first time, so I'm really curious to know, because I didn't watch this until many years after it had come out. I never really had an interest in 16 Candles. It was, I think. it was either Breakfast Club or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was the first John Hughes movie I ever actually watched. And so I came back to 16 Candles a little bit later. Watching it this time, this is the first time in a while, I actually got my wife to watch this with me because she has very fond memories of it. And when I was watching it this time, what struck me was I think the whole high school conceit is inauthentic. These characters, I think, behave much more like a really bawdy Shakespeare play, right? Where it's much more in the vein of something like that, and they're dealing with much more mature issues than I think the average high schooler does. And by that, what I mean is,
like Jake saying he wants to find something more meaningful. He's like, I want to find somebody to love, or something like that.
There's that for sure. There's just so much of this that seems like a shaky conceit forced on teenage characters. And since this is your first time, do you agree with that assessment? Or do you think, because it is an adult writing teenage characters, and
well, in a way that doesn't
seems
surprise
more
me,
adult.
though, because I think it's very common for kids at any age to aspire and enjoy watching things and reading things that are kind of the next tier above. They don't really want to see what their peers are doing and the struggles that they personally are facing. They want to see what the older kids are doing, even if it's just by a year or two. There's always kind of that, the movies that they're watching and the experiences that they're having. So kind of like freshmen looking at seniors or something like that. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, it's very much, you're whether it's fitting these types of situations that a freshman would actually be dealing with, and I mean, there's a ton of this movie that has nothing to do with school. I mean, her home life, oh my gosh, like she is just this is the worst birthday ever. I mean, her sister's getting married and, nobody remembers her birthday, and, you get all the grandparents stuff. That felt way more like real life baked into this story than anything from the high school stuff. It was more the family, the terrible, terrible family that I felt so bad. Although I will say, when I mentioned to my wife that we were starting on Hughes and watching this, the one piece of information she wanted to give me was that apparently in the original ending, Molly Ringwald, Samantha, Sam got together with the nerd, and Molly Ringwald was like, "No, I want her to get together with the popular hot guy," and they changed the ending. Now, that may be apocryphal. I don't know if that's actually true, but that also sounds like something that could totally happen. So,
right, that translates this into a fantasy more than anything else.
Yeah, like the very end where he's like you said, Tristan, where all of a sudden he's very deep and, he's totally letting this guy borrow his dad's Royce. And it's like, he kind of, I don't know what his character is supposed to be doing, but the last bit, that is not how a person acts. Like, he's way too chill with everything going on.
Yeah, I think that was one thing. The characterizations I felt were very poor in this film. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel for some of these people. And that was a sore point for me, because when you're looking at Jake and then you're like, okay, so is he the hot guy? Is he the popular kid? Okay, I think we've established that. And then we're just like, okay, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he in the middle? Does it matter? And then I'm like, am I supposed to be invested in him? Am I rooting for Samantha to get with him?
Right.
And there's so many weird instances where it's just like, I don't know who to root for in this. And then there was also so many times when Samantha's perspective was betrayed or shunned to the back for an exceptionally long time. And I'm like, wait, who's the protagonist of this film? There's so much protagonist confusion. I was like, okay, like, did they hand the movie over to Anthony Michael Hall? Did they hand the movie over to Jake?
It's kind of like three protagonists at the same time, in a way.
And when you have three protagonists, you have no protagonists, and that's what was really frustrating. And just, yeah, I just, and also with Anthony Michael Hall, the way that they introduce him, I'm like, oh, this guy's a prick. He's disgusting. He's a disgusting prick. And then we see him again
with the heart of gold. Wait, what?
Yeah, and I'm just like, wait, what? And I was just like, what am I supposed to feel for this guy? What am I supposed to? Am I? Because like, if you see it from Samantha's perspective, he is a gropey,
he's a creep,
disgusting creep that you want nothing to do with it. You want to just kick him in the balls so he goes away. And then like, there's a scene where like he literally jumps on her multiple times, and she's like, stop. There was so much confusion. I don't think I liked any of the characters except for the first grandparents we saw, who like were answering the phone, and she's like, God did not put me on this earth to put up with your foul language. I was just like, I am using that.
Yeah, I think these are, valid criticisms. I think that this is definitely a movie that benefits from a nostalgic aspect to any rewatch, if you experienced it at the time, right?
Yeah.
We've all talked about nostalgia. It's like you're reliving that memory. And I do think that when you contrast it with something like American Graffiti is a genuine look at what life was like then. It feels almost like a documentary, where it's like, oh, I believe this is what life was like in this specific area for these specific people. This seems authentic. And this really is just a broad comic farce. And there's a place for that. But I think that the reputation of 16 Candles benefits from the effect of how he landed with his later works. It sort of gets swept up in that, where it's judged a little more generously because
it wasn't the first gem.
Do next.
It was the beginning of an era, and the era, oh my gosh, of John Hughes. But I think you're right.
And I do think that you can't really undercut the fact that the production design's good. It's edited pretty tightly. It remembers the rule of comedy: get in and get out fast. Just get in and get out.
Tristan, how much? Where's the bloat? Tell me, because I know you saw it.
Yeah. Okay.
It was it was when it was around the dance. It was when they were at the dance. There was way too much. Like, I had no idea why she was crying. I had no idea why she was hanging out in the hallway, and then the scene where they're in the shop class went on way too long. Yeah, that is the bloat. Absolutely, right there, smack dab in the middle.
Fair enough. I tend to look at it as the rule of comedy is stay as close to an hour and a half as you possibly can, and just get it done.
Then write an hour and a half.
I mean, 93 minutes. They're right there.
I mean, it's a fair criticism. I wouldn't reject it. I think that it's that broad strokes sort of thing, as opposed to a genuine. There's no sense here of somebody genuinely looking back at that time in their lives. If it were, Hughes would be directing a movie about when he was in high school, not the modern day.
That's which I looked up, and he would have been 1968. He would have been a senior, so he's a 60s kid as far as for high school is concerned. But
yeah, that was my mom graduated high school in 69, so that's weird to think about, because like John Hughes is so 80s high school that you're just.
But that wasn't his. That's not like, I think, like you said, American Graffiti. That was George Lucas's era. Growing up, in that time.
Yeah, I honestly feel like I watch American Graffiti and I have a sense for what it was like in that part of California at that time, as opposed to, I don't know that this reflects suburban life, all that accurately, with the exception of the family situation of, sort of the chaotic nature of the family, the grandparents that you're obligated to be nice to, even though, Grandpa Frank is something of a D-bag, that sort of thing. I think that there's a broad comedy fail in terms of the sister's marriage, like
Yeah.
that first dinner with the family and these weak Godfather references, and it just so overdoes all of that
I didn't
stuff.
like, the whole family part, besides the grandparent part, like, because that was very, that writes itself. We all know grandparents like that, even if they aren't our grandparents. But yeah, I almost felt that the family, and especially the sister's marriage, was really distracting. It's like this huge life event that is just happening on the sidelines compared to another day in high school. And that felt, I mean, maybe that's what we're going for, but
I think that it is a sloppy plot device to explain why the family could possibly forget her birthday. You're willing to buy into the idea that they're so caught up in everything else.
That's a lot of pages you're writing to just have they forgot her birthday. Like, I agree with you.
I don't disagree.
I'm just saying.
And I don't disagree with you. Like, there were better ways to do this.
Yeah.
And
I mean, maybe getting ready for a trip or something like that was happening in a couple of days.
Yeah, and they leave her home alone.
It's the day before
their
daughters. Oh, jeez.
Hey, that was down the street for me too.
I walked right into that one. But yeah, it's like it's the day before their daughter's wedding, and I'm like, this is kind of the chillest day before a daughter's wedding I've ever seen. Like, it's like Thursday. Who cares? Like, it's so chill.
Personally, I want to meet this fictional character if I ever get a wish, because she took 4 muscle relaxers and was still standing. And that is a Herculean task right there. I wouldn't dare to take that many muscle relaxers, but wow, the simple fact that she was speaking, that's an amazing feat. But also that is one of those things where it's like, it's funny, but not like as much time as we spent with it funny.
It's also, I know it's either you buy it or you don't, because that's a big crux of the movie, is that they forgot her birthday. Think about how often you prep for a birthday, or you just talk about it. You're like, somebody has a birthday next week.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Or even the grandparents. She even called it out, like, grandparents, you live for this stuff. It's like, you're right. Yeah. I'm more not understanding that they forgot.
And also, like, when they were planning the wedding, you're telling me that no one brought it up, said, like, that's a day before or after your sister's wedding, or
sister's birthday.
Your sister's birthday. Yeah, it's a day after your sister's birthday. Nobody went like, oh, that's weird. We gotta make sure we do something. Blah 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 blah. Or like, even if they had some sort of reason, I don't know. It's just there's so much.
I don't think they have a calendar, because Molly was just like, oh yeah, I got to dance tonight. Nobody knew that wasn't on the calendar. This is not a calendar family, guys.
And also, if my grandparents were in town for a wedding, I wouldn't be going to a dance. I wouldn't be allowed to go to a dance. And also, it just doesn't work.
But that's the thing. I think that just points to the fact that this is just a very broad comedy. This is somebody putting their first movie together. He definitely, I think, learns from this. But the thing is, the movie's still incredibly successful when it's released. It makes a lot of money against its budget.
And there's so many references to this movie throughout pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, this was my first time seeing it all the way through, but I feel like I've seen all of it just because of all the Family Guy gags that I've alluded to it.
Family Guy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, given all of those pop culture references, and given its place, and given its legend, and all of those sorts of things, one of the things that's unavoidable, I hate going down roads like this.
I was wondering when we were going to do this.
Hate going down roads like this, but obviously there's certain things where they're not written with the
cultural sensitivity.
One of the things, actually, I was talking about with my wife after it is, I get it, right? Long Duck Dong is played for certain type of laughs and stuff like that. But what's interesting about his character is it actually winds up in a big way flipping and showing how dysfunctional and, in a sense, bad this suburban life that's idealized is. You basically find out that the grandparents are using him for cheap labor around the house. Like, he's treated badly, and it's like it's this thing where you can flip it around and show, is it done well? No, I mean, obviously, this character wouldn't be written this way today. Absolutely not.
I knew I knew this crap was coming. Like, I knew all this stuff. I knew the rapey crap was coming. I knew the racist stuff was coming. I knew the homophobic slurs were going to be thrown around. And I tried to see that within the context of the 80s. Like, it's hard not to judge a film by current standards when you don't have a nostalgic factor for it. Like, when you didn't see it when it first came out. Like, I understand that's a hard thing to do. And also, like kind of what I was talking about earlier with Jake. I'm like, am I supposed to be rooting for Jake? And then, like, he makes this reference about, like, oh, I could go violate Caroline upstairs, like, no problem. Just like, good Lord, like, just how casual that is. It's shocking. But yeah, I mean, whether those are satirical or not, or, lifts the veil, they're still there.
It's one of those things where I think you have to make that judgment to say, okay, this is just a badly written exchange, and it's just Jake saying that, look what happened to my house and everything, and the type of life that I'm leading, and I don't want to go down this road. But you do have to take the lines on the surface, the way that they're said and the way that they're written, and say, well, that's kind of crappy. Why did you write it that way? You had the opportunity not to, that sort of thing.
I think that's definitely a line that could be explained in context and internal motivation. I think that's definitely true. I think what buries that, or maybe not buries it, but puts some dirt on top of it, is when he passes off his drunk girlfriend to someone he doesn't even know and says, like, if you do X, Y, and Z for me, you get to take her home. Well, what does he think he's going to do? What does Jake think that the geek's going to do to take her home? Does he honestly believe that he's just going to take her home and he's just passing her his responsibility to take her home on the geek? Or is he just like, he can do whatever he wants to her because I don't care?
I mean, instead, it would have been better to be like, I'm trusting you with my car, but more importantly, I'm trusting you with her. I know you're the kind of guy who'll get her home. Like, actually meaning it. But that is not the direction they went.
This is a movie that relies very heavily on the audience presuming the implied nobility of its characters, as opposed to writing it expressly, or even in such a way that it is expressed appropriately, if that makes sense.
I mean, I was just doing the math, and 16 candles split 3 ways is only 5.3 candles per person. So it doesn't work.
That's
guys.
not a lot of candles.
It doesn't work. We need more candles per one protagonist to make this
wouldn't
fly.
It be 5.33, 5.33, and 5.34 candles?
I mean, it's 5.33 repeating. So, I mean, that's as much math as I'm willing to do right now.
Oh, there you go. So, one final note is, Hughes winds up using this to launch a career as a director, and he winds up launching the careers of several actors and actresses, as we said. But when we come back to it, we ultimately have to say, what do we think of it? What do we rate it? And that can be a dicey proposition in and of itself, right? Because there are so many different things, different third rails. There are multiple third rails in this, multiple leaps, multiple nostalgic possibilities, and all of those sorts of things. So I'm dying to know, Tristan, what did you rate 16 Candles?
Well, I tried to look at, like I was talking about earlier, about like analyzing the film and looking at the film regardless of, and I know you love this word, regardless of its problematic aspects.
Mm-hmm.
I try to remove that, because like if you keep that stuff in, you're just like, oh, zero, this is horrible, this is stuff this wouldn't fly today. But even taking that stuff out, even taking out that disgusting stuff, this is a 1.5 for me. This is easily a horrible movie in my eyes. Like I think that from a writing perspective, from a editing perspective, in terms of story, not necessarily in pacing, but in story, it just the did I say protagonist confusion? Just like there's so much where I don't really believe that these people are in high school. They don't act like they're in high school. Like there's too many varying degrees of high schoolness, even though there is a big difference between a freshman and a sophomore. I had no idea who I was supposed to root for or what situation I was supposed to root for. This was not an enjoyable experience. And it's so perplexing because this movie is so referenced and so beloved and so fondly looked upon that I would love to give it a higher rating because of what it represents. But to me, this is just a bad movie. This is just a bad movie. I can't wait to talk about Breakfast Club and the Brat Pack and everything like that. But I'm glad that somebody saw something in this so that we could continue to get a Hughes career. But for me, this was whew.
Darren, what about you?
Yeah, looking back at the stats, Tristan, this is the lowest you've ever ranked a movie in Houselights.
That feels about right. I think what was the other one? What was the one where
you have a couple twos? Medicine Man was also a 2. Ed Wood and Batman Returns are the most recent 2s.
Okay, I know that you guys said that I rated the one with Goldie Hawn higher than I expected.
Sugarland Express 2.5.
Yeah,
I need
point
to go
higher than this. But again, hey, it's it's ratings. So if we were to watch all of Spielberg in that decade again now, I'm sure it would be different. So it's always a sliding scale. I also gave this a 2. Partly wanting to give Hughes a little room to improve on my scale, but I don't have the nostalgia factor. I wasn't a girl in high school growing up, so I can't even look at it in that lens. There's a lot in the family side that was really distracting for me. Like not even just the wedding, but then the mob angle thrown in, because I guess that feels like a draft 1 idea that somehow made it to the final script. Like I don't see where that plays in, but but I mean, good for Hughes. He produces so fast before anyone has time to stop him. He's moved on to his next flick. That was his plan. And so no, I mean, the only thing I knew of this film before was that shot at the end, which feels very juxtaposed, where they're like, now they're in a house with the cake but it's not actually your birthday anymore. The shot of her and Jake.
Was that only one day later? Was that when she was supposed to be at the reception?
I think it's the evening of the next day. But I was also surprised because, it's her birthday and we get to the end of her birthday and I'm like, but wait, we didn't have the cake scene. I thought that was going to be on her birthday. But but no, I give it a 2. Directing wise, it's fairly well directed. I think he's juggling different plots, and I don't know, maybe if he wasn't the writer of his first directing attempt, maybe that would be a little bit easier. At least he's not acting in it as well. At least he wasn't adding that to the pie. But yeah, so I think there's definitely room for him to grow. I know he's going to hit great heights coming later. But yeah, I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I land at a 2.5. It's not great. It's just this side of, there are a couple of laughs in it, sort of thing. There are definitely structural problems with it. There are definitely things where it's like, this is more, and I think this speaks to what you're observing, Tristan, about the cultural touchstone thing. I think that what it is there are some movies that survive on moments. And there are definitely moments in this that are great. Like you see somebody where if they could have just put it together better, or maybe given another pass at the script, or had somebody else look at it and be like, change this. You would have wound up with something where you would have had, a much better cohesive actual story. But, I think you can look at this and you can say, okay, well, there are moments, there are some funny laughs here. The grandparents are funny. I think both sets of grandparents are funny. I think one of the funniest scenes is the two grandmothers trying to cook breakfast, and the one grandmother has like
That's
an
the first
inch and a
thing I
half
thought
long
of when you
cigarette
said
ash.
that.
You know, that's terrific. Or even the grandfather who just tells the annoying jokes and is just like, oh, you know, like you think one set of grandparents is annoying, but they're like overly loving. And then grandpa number two, Grandpa Frank, is like, oh gosh, this guy is like, if you weren't blood related to him, you wouldn't want to hang out with this dude at all. Like that sort of thing. But yeah, you know, I mean, and just speaking of the other stuff, yeah, there's stuff that just doesn't work even by, you know, 80s standards of behavior. And it's just somebody who hasn't figured out that the time of the, I don't know, it feels like an attempt at a National Lampoon raunchy comedy without the
But with
finesse.
teenagers.
Yeah, but without the finesse necessary to make it a little bit softer and a little bit more sympathetic, and so missing the mark on a lot of those things. So yeah, 2.5. So that takes us past 16 Candles, and so naturally, with this film being a hit, we go to the inevitable sequel, 16 Candles, a Molly Ringwald story. Which oh wait, no, that one didn't happen. Although, just as a final side note, indeed there was a sequel being talked about as recently as 2008, but Ringwald could not get Hughes involved, and then he died of a heart attack a year later. So as recently as 2008, they were talking about a sequel. So
I think we're
figure.
okay with no sequel to this one. I think we're past.
Probably so. I don't think there needs to be a 16 Candles franchise going on, but we will move on next to the absolute touchstone of the 1980s, the teen movie of all teen movies, The Breakfast Club. So join us in detention next week as we visit with The Breakfast Club. And until then, insert your catchphrase here.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.